All right. Welcome to my commercial real estate corner. This is Kevin Krueger, 9-year tenant rep for commercial properties, office, warehouse, and retail. I'm learning and serving developers on site selection, and I'm very honored and pleased to bring one of my first friends in Miami, and that's Silvio Pupo. We met through Venture Cafe years ago, the old CIC, Cambridge Innovation Center in Overtown. Silvio, welcome to the corner of our commercial real estate world.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. Yeah, here, let me make sure we have the mic close by. Can you hear me well over there? Okay, awesome. Thanks for having me, Kevin. Really excited to be here on your podcast. Long time coming. I think that a lot of people should have a chance to listen to your view of Miami, both from the real estate side, but as well as someone that's very active in the community, socially, that cares about philanthropy, that cares about wellness, that cares about sports. So I think you bring a lot of dynamism, and not just to the community, but even to local government, like your service now, the city of Miami Beach, right? It's nice to be here with somebody that is just as dynamic as I am, and just as involved in the community. So, and in all things, excited that we were able to focus our conversation on how does all this stuff tie together, for example, in the most critical cornerstone of our local economy, which is the commercial real estate industry. So looking forward to talking about that with you today.
Absolutely. We're going to try to get about a half an hour together today, starting with a 5-minute intro, and both of us have some calls to make, true to the nature of the profession, right? But we've coined the phrase MiamiVerse. For those of you that can't quite see the screen, we'll try to plug it in later. MiamiVerse sounds like a take off of Metaverse. Am I wrong?
That's right. That's right.
Oh, that's my gold bullion. It doesn't move that easy.
Oh.
He's been working out. So. Tell us about MiamiVerse for one, because you got a number of different projects and a number of different websites. Right now, it seems like, to me, I might be most attracted to serve my clientele through your MiamiVerse. Okay. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I appreciate that prompt, Kevin. I mean, you've known me since my time doing Government Blockchain Association meetings, educating the public on digital assets and how we could use public tech for civic good. A lot of my work as a professional during that time period has been, as the managing director of Logos Capital, which I started about 14 years ago. And that is very different than this, but kind of builds on that culmination of things that I learned doing impact investing, building smart city projects and technologies and
impact investing.
That's right. And so impact investing is the core philosophy of which I operate from, meaning that when we invest in our time, our energy, our money, our financial return includes not just financial return, but social and environmental return along with it. Okay. And I believe fundamentally, all businesses, all projects can have that triple bottom line, hyper-local circular economy, regenerative economic systems, all by design that serve the greater individual business interest and the greater good at the same time, which over the long run is better for business.
You just said these magic words, for the greater good. If anyone's watched Simon Pegg's films, do you know that his triumvirate films?
I don't. I mean, actually, I learned a lot of my pop culture from you.
Who is deciding the greater good?
Ideally, the public. And part of the MiamiVerse is to level the playing field, right, to understanding what is going on. I remember meeting with a commissioner, a fellow Cubaraguan like myself, a 22-year-old commissioner for City Hialeah. And
translate Cubaraguan.
Cubaraguan means you're Cuban and Nicaraguan.
Okay.
Which is a very Miami
I learned about Juban years ago.
That's right.
In Miami. And I didn't even know the Jewish people lived in South America.
Yes.
And I've got some Mexican, Argentinian, Jewish clientele that I serve. And I'm like, I didn't even know you're Jewish. I'm living 6 years.
The Juban population was huge.
Of course.
And so was the Chinese-Cuban population.
I learned that too. My guy, Avilio Chang, was the starter over at Miami Beach Golf Club. And I learned that too.
Yeah.
So you were meeting with a commissioner of one of the local municipalities.
That's right, Commissioner Marrero. Shout out to him. Really inspiring. We should have him on this podcast. He's inspiring. City of Hialeah.
Okay, Hialeah.
And he's about to graduate from his undergrad at FIU soon as well, right? So he's a rock star.
Like a late bloomer?
Academically? No, early bloomer, because he's been so busy with his trying to implement his philosophy of how to get things done in the real world.
Right.
That academia is helpful to shape that mental model, but it's never going to really be able to teach you as much as actual implementation, being in the business, right? And so he's doing both, I think, quite beautifully. But anyway, to get back to Committeeman William Marrero, is that we're like, look, how do you think you can use this tool, right? And so the idea behind the MiamiVerse or this bigger Open Miami initiative was like, how do we save Miami? They've had this campaign to connect data, to submit our greenhouse gas inventory to the global stocktake of the United Nations.
Okay.
Because our mayor at the time, Mayor Cava and Mayor Francis,
Mayor of Miami-Dade,
and City of Miami, respectively, both went to Glasgow to commit to the global stocktake. And so my dad had a heart attack around the time I was in the hospital with him. I had a concussion myself around that time. It was about our company's, Logos Capital's 10-year anniversary. And I was like, you know what? I had a long look in the mirror and said, let's figure out how we take all these things I've learned, in Latin America, Asia, the Caribbean,
Mongolia.
Europe. Right.
When I first met him, he was mining in Mongolia, right?
Yeah, Peru.
Bitcoin mining or
energy. It was the energy and mining industry. The metals.
I can't keep track of this serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, but then I did
so impressed.
The Bitcoin mining or crypto mining, sustainable Bitcoin mining or crypto mining, I think is the distinction. And anyhow, fast forward, this MiamiVerse project is meant to connect the data between the county, the government, the academia, the cities, right? A lot of these data sets are out there. They're public data sets, but they're siloed. They're, it doesn't always interconnect in a meaningful way. And
maybe we should take a break and bring people back. You got to make your phone call, right? You got scheduled 1:30?
1:30, yeah.
And then we can have Frank be our Vanna White, another Gen X reference Frank doesn't get, right? Wheel of Fortune. Do you want to make your call? And we're back after those commercials.
Yes, that was really good. I really enjoyed those commercials.
Yeah. So we were talking MiamiVerse. I thought I'd share some of our props. One, this is how I get around town with my handcuffed briefcase. Is it filled with either cash or gold or something else? Everybody wants to know what's in the briefcase. But and then my alma mater, Babson's MBA program, has a provost who's written in this book with a colleague, another academic, on the 3 most emerging global cities, which sounds like it would be of interest to you and our ilk.
Yeah, it is actually. I was there when Miami-Dade Beacon Council's Opportunity Miami was being led by Matt Hagman, and he invited Alejandro to give a presentation at Miami-Dade College at the Idea Center about his work here with emerging global cities and Singapore examples and other things he put in there.
There you go. Singapore, Dubai, and Miami are the 3. So I've just cracked the book. I'm about 40 pages in, and I look forward. Do you have a copy?
I do.
Okay. Is yours autographed like mine?
Yes.
Oh, man. Not like I'm trying to one-up them. I can't wait for your book to come out with an autographed copy. So, all right, back to MiamiVerse among several projects you got going on. Describe MiamiVerse in 30 seconds and how it could be used, civic, residential, consumer or whatever, or professionals like myself, agent, developer, etc.
Okay, so I'll make it relevant for maybe the listeners in the audience of this podcast, and in short, MiamiVerse is the culmination of a lot of years of work to be able to build. How do we actually start building a sustainable smart city? So it's what we call a digital twin and AI testbed for the public sector, the private sector, and academia to be able to connect together, connect their data, connect their projects, be able to figure out how do we put guardrails and best practices in place as a community so that we can unlock insights and make better decisions around where we're going as a city. And part of that includes resilience and infrastructure, which I care a lot about, and and I'm wanting to understand what's going on, right, in our city, in our community, whether it's from a financial investment perspective or if
Well,
it's,
when you say resilience, I'm going to slow down for some of the audience. What might that mean to a lay consumer?
so resilience means a number of things. But Miami, I think, leads in this concept of resilience. I think it's defined as how quickly you can bounce back after a catastrophe, right?
For instance, we're ground zero for the
Hurricanes.
Western Hemisphere's worst hurricanes,
Yeah.
the most frequent and
Right.
powerful sometimes. And so therefore, we have the highest, this county, Miami-Dade,
Right.
has the highest permit requirements for hurricane resistance,
Right.
whether it's glass on the lower levels of condo apartment buildings, need to be reinforced versus the glass higher up, less risky and therefore less costly to those developers, among a number of other things. Accessory dwelling units can't just be granny flats. They've got to be, to code, hurricane resistant code, strongest in probably the world.
Yeah. Up there with Bermuda, right?
What are some other resilient issues beyond hurricanes, flooding, etc.?
I mean, look, this is a tough top. These are the tough, heavy topics people don't really want to talk about, from the capital of the Americas. But sea level rise is a big one, right? So you have sea level rise. Everything. I'm on the climate resilience committee for the city of Miami as their economics appointee.
Right,
And part of that
I'm gonna challenge you.
Yeah.
As many would ask, is it really? Is sea level rise really the existential threat that we've heard about for 50 years and still waiting for the inch increases? I mean, yeah, obviously we see the polar caps thinning and so on, but how is it really affecting Venice, the Netherlands, Miami, ground zero for, continue. That's the challenge because our audience is questioning.
It's important to understand, right? Because we have, unlike Venice and Holland, for example.
This is one of my first questions joining my brokerage firm 9 years ago. That was literally, how much Spanish do I need to know in commercial real estate? I still know zero. I know 36 words or so, and literally this question about sea level rise. So
the obstacle we have. This climate resilience committee used to be the sea level rise committee, but we're tackling a lot more than sea level rise. We're talking about urban flooding, sunny day flooding is a big one. Sea level rise.
King tides.
Yeah, king tide is another. So king tide. So the way to think about it with king tide is king tide attacks you from the front. Sea level rise gives you a flooding, but we also have other permutations, which is the Florida aquifer. So we're built on top of, a porous material. Right, so that porous material, a limestone, receives multiple. Like you have multiple layers that seeps through and seeps down. So you have pluvial flooding from raining, You have a storm surge from the front from storms, and you have things like sea level rise, and then you also have water coming in from the bottom. All right, so we're. That is, yes, it's not just sea level rise, which does get exacerbated with higher water ratio, assuming the world is round or flat. I'm not checking. Maybe this calculation works in both.
I think
cases.
Our audience recognizes its roundness.
I'm on that side of the camp, but a lot of folks say to remain open minded. So I was like, all right, let's see. But in either case, you have this volumetric pressure that comes up of the water that will create that amount of sea level rise, right? And so you have part of what we wanted to see in the MiamiVerse is how do we show the Army Corps of Engineers, multi-billion-dollar proposal to have a seawall, right? How do people know about the seawall? What if you're buying real estate there and then you have a seawall, interrupt your view? And so the public in general, there's so much noise in Miami. There's so many events going on all the time. So many conferences, so many cities, so much going on. Blah 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 blah. Like all the major cities, and so you have major things that we miss. We can miss that if you're not paying attention, and even if you are paying attention, you can still miss it. So kind of back to Commissioner Marrero's example. He's like, look, sometimes I'm at a meeting where we approve
the Hialeah commissioner.
Sometimes I have a meeting where you have one agenda item that's going to affect this corner, let's say, right? And that corner could be doing like a parking project to be able to. And the next thing you know, we have a couple meetings later, we have another agenda item that is in the same corner that changes something else, which would then impact the other thing we already talked about. And he goes, if somebody's not paying attention, we'll miss that clash. Now you're giving conflicting directives. So my view of City Hall and future meetings is we use the MiamiVerse across the 34 different, 30, I don't know if it's 32, sometimes maybe there's like new proposals for new cities in like unincorporated Dade. Miami-Dade is complicated. For the viewers in the audience, Miami-Dade County has 32 to 34 cities, depending on who's counting or if we're having formal cities versus cities that are trying to become cities. And so that's confusing to a lot of people. So the MiamiVerse helps people understand that.
Section like Brownsville had a civic advocate trying to incorporate.
And so yeah, that's so the MiamiVerse is meant to really showcase all the public data that's available. How do we clean that data? How do we create a single source of truth for what's going on? Right.
Right.
At a city level, at the academic level, we have a lot of data being collected by FIU and University of Miami. Right. Those data sets within the institutions don't speak to each other. Right. Much less across the institution.
Right.
And so unless you know, and the academics tend to know because they're doing research and they end up finding out who to get to, like me, as I'm an academic, I'm on the board of UM, I'm an adjunct professor at Miami-Dade College, trying to push different curriculums to get adopted so we stay competitive. And I was a visiting scholar at FIU and thanks to the Volo Foundation, a Volo Fellow for a year, to work on weaving all these things together. And the other thing I wanted to be able to show is what does the future look like? So what are the changes that are happening in my neighborhood? What are the new buildings that are going up? What's planned? What's approved? So what we're looking at here with this version, this is actually a digital twin of the Miami-Dade, Miami Downtown Development Agency, the Miami DDA. And it's a bit of a vision that the director has had. This was a long-term project and dwindled down and came back to life. And they finally launched it last year. And so today is the MiamiVerse anniversary day. So I'm really excited about.
That's right. Man, I really feel honored to be your limo driver today. Truly picked him up on the way here to Nucleus Hub at your Alapata home and taking you back towards Edgewater where we're going to meet for your art walk presentation at the Miami Women's Club, which is now a beautiful restaurant.
Oh, gorgeous location. Well, yeah, I'm not sure the restaurant. They have a couple. They have a couple of restaurants in there. I think Claw is one of them.
It's gorgeous. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and we want more of that. Right?
Thank you for carving out time for the commercial real estate corner.
Thank you for inviting me. I mean, I think that supporting businesses like yours and good people like yours is really what unifying the community should be around, right?
Right.
And so, like,
thank you.
You have a lot of people fly in from all parts of the world, like Boston, and then and they don't really want to contribute to the community. You do. You know, you're a fabric of our community, Kevin.
Thank you.
And so, anything that I could do to support that helps us advance the word and get the word of like these digital public tools that are meant to support people to be more successful and protect people against, kind of like, cult vulture economists, right? Or vulture capitalists, right? And I believe that we have, our biggest asset in Miami is our cultural capital and our natural capital. The Bay produces $72 billion in economic value, according to the last study a few years ago under the Bay officer. And so I want to show what is our water quality, where are the future buildings, and what's the history of Miami, right? All in one place so people can search and discover and explore. Not just go off of whatever Google's going to sell us, but what do we want to sell about ourselves as a community?
Right.
And so my hope is that, the MiamiVerse becomes like a Facebook meets Miami, but it's all by Miami, for Miami, highlighting what we want to highlight. We'll focus on small businesses doing the right thing like you, right? To be able to leverage these insights and these tools. And to large, municipal governments like the county that needs, different data sets, and they have a hard time sometimes reconciling everything, getting the flows. So we want to with the MiamiVerse, we're trying to take the burden off of the government and say, look, you guys have provided amazing stewardship. You're doing all this amazing work. Same thing with academia. But if you're not an academic or you're not in those rooms, you won't know about all the amazing projects that we have, collecting all the data of everywhere to put it in one place. And the county spends millions of dollars on marketing. So does the city of Miami. So does Miami Beach. How do we unify all these efforts into one umbrella so we know what people are actually searching for? How do you? So
if I can interject for a second, the MiamiVerse is some of its intent to be user generated. So basically, if let's say a broker like us or our client, a developer,
Yeah.
might have the insight to like, hey, here's what we build, or here's what's proposed, or here's the history of the project. It, how does the MiamiVerse get its content?
Great question. And so that's where the test bed comes in. So the base content, I think,
We have property appraiser website.
right,
We have the MLS, which doesn't have
right.
everything.
right,
It has a lot of residential. It's got a lot of commercial. We have CoStar, LoopNet,
Right.
you know, Crexy. All you know,
Right.
there's 600 different real estate listing services out there that are all in their own little pipeline, so that they can earn their subscriptions. Obviously, property appraisers free-ish. You know, tax paid. Where does the MiamiVerse? How does the MiamiVerse? So it's aggregating, or
Yeah.
what are we doing here?
Aggregating. We're connecting the dots, right? So you have public APIs from the county, we're valuing data according to how authoritative is that data, right? So you can think
Always
about
a question for us on either commercial MLS
right,
or CoStar that has research, you know, in-house, but they can't always keep up with it. And
Right.
frankly, like a lot of us in our brokerage industry want to keep our cards held tightly to the chest.
Yeah.
Our clients, you know, there's an off market of properties as well. And so you're not always going to be accurate. You cannot measure, for instance, one of our issues in building market rate or luxury apartments or affordable apartments is, what's the average apartment rent? You don't know. They're all negotiated differently even within buildings, and so that's not going to show up on property appraiser or public site. And most agents are going to inflate the price that they sold at so they can earn a higher commission on the next sale. So, you know, sorry to interject. I'm just trying to add some context to what MiamiVerse is going to become.
It's really relevant.
Which I'm excited about, for
Kevin.
and for us.
Yeah, as you should, right? I mean, I think that right now, thanks to the great work that the DDA has done in curating some of this data.
DDA is the downtown development.
The Miami downtown development.
Miami Brickell area.
Correct. Yes, the Miami DDA, and they you know, particularly the urbanism team led by Neil Schaefers and Maria Lorena Puche are amazing. They work really hard. They worked incredibly hard curating a lot of this data. Right, and so now we're saying we have other developers that have come to us that are building super tall towers, and they want to be able to show the future towers and where they're at. So we've been able to, through this alliance, this collaboration,
An example of a super tower would be Ken Griffin's Citadel,
Ken
or
Griffin's
the 830 Brickell offices that just opened recently,
Exactly.
or Mercedes-Benz that are. My colleague's JDS Development's got 800 units, luxury condos, 170 of those are hotel. Super towers.
Super
Right.
towers.
Yeah, we're getting up there.
Yeah.
And, you know, hence the emerging, you know, markets here.
Super towers, and I think to your point for the audience, and you guys might already know this, are like super tall towers.
Yeah, right.
They're
Because
just
it's Miami. We're 10 miles wide between the Bay and the Everglades. We can mostly go up.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah, we're really restrained. We're almost an island, right? For all intents and purposes.
We're in isthmus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so here's how the loop starts to create value, right? So the baseline data that was created by, say, CyberCity 3D's, you know, 3D buildings, and then curated by DDA's additional work, now creates like a very good base. And now those super talls, they're hiring other private sector partners that are also part of our offering, and say, hey, can you help us design this in a game engine, so people, when they come into the showroom, they can see in virtual reality and augmented reality that building, right, and the context of where the other building is going to be, right, or what is my view going to look like when I buy my condo? What's in my view, like that I bought it paying this much, now we have this, so we're actually going to help avoid a lot of legal disputes,
Right.
right, by being able to show you in, this is what you're buying, what it's going to look like in 4 years, 5 years. Right. And on the other side, we're building these immersive experiences. Just right now in downtown, I'll show you one of these. One of our technology partners licensed the buildings from us, then they improve those buildings by texturizing the buildings based on what they actually look like, right, to make them more detailed, and then they put them back into this model for downtown that's now has a higher level of detail, right, LOD, so that they can showcase their particular super tower. And now what I'm going to say, okay, we have that. If you want to reuse that, that's fine. I want to also now help the DDA get that benefit of giving them a better thing that was improved because we were able to leverage something they did. And now I'm adding value and layers of layers that's going to continue to, hey, we keep it within the test bed. Do you like it? Yes? Okay, boom. Now you also get that access to that asset, right? And so that's how we create this regenerative, self-improving flywheel and build on the work and the taxpayer money that's been put into these incredible initiatives for digital twins in Miami. And my goal will be, now that we have the MiamiVerse Day proclamation, is to go to each city. So each city adopts the MiamiVerse, and they customize it for their goals, right? Now each commissioner can highlight their neighborhood things or their projects, or they can understand and highlight, okay, what's going on. So that tower, that super tall tower, is now going to pay us to be able to show their super high fidelity sales and marketing tower. So people can click onto it and see what it's going to look like and visit it. If we're in Dubai or Tokyo or Moscow or Canada, you can now experience that without having to fly in and go to a showroom. Right. And the showroom, by the way, if anybody does want to fly in and check this out, is a big 3D printed sculpture of one of the super towers and two-story walls, video walls everywhere, to experience the MiamiVerse.
Where is that located? Wynwood?
Downtown.
In downtown. Okay. Through the DDA?
And no, okay. It's through our private sector partners.
Great.
And so that's, by being this connection.
Get a link in the bio, both to watch your microphone. I'll try to get a link in not the bio. It's so typical social media, right? In this post to both MiamiVerse and then the showroom you mentioned while it's there. And, I think your project here also begs the question from me and our audience, someone in our audience.
Yeah.
All right, so you build MiamiVerse to a robust visual and usable tool. What's next? New York, Dubai, London. Do you have goals for that? Do you have capability? Do you have bandwidth? Or obviously partners are probably coming to you and saying, hey, great job, Silvio.
Yeah.
We want to do this for LA or Rio.
Yeah.
What's the status?
So what I've done is MiamiVerse is really meant to be a free public tool for public benefit. But the template that we're doing is and the licenses and the data and the commercialization and the contracting vehicles to help offer that solution to be turnkey to others, offer the SustainaVerse as a toolkit solution is offered through Sustaina Cities, our Sustainable Cities toolkit.
Right.
And so we'll be able to offer, 10, 15 different software licenses and 20 different hardware products to make your building smarter, better, to go from being a smart building to a cognitive building.
Right. Chatting about the prospects for the Verse to go to LA, New York, Dubai, Singapore, or what have you. Who's asked you from across this beautiful blue globe to take it to the next region?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, as an ambassador for the city, the last 10 years, a lot of my focus has been looking at how do we build sister city partnerships with other cities. And part of that has been prioritizing cities that are leading smart cities and also leading green cities. Independently, and because of the flywheel business model.
Give us an example of a green city.
The leading green city ranked last year was Tallinn in Estonia, by the way, where I have our e-residency.
Really? Cool.
Yep. A leading smart city we have a good relationship with.
Estonia is the Baltic states.
Baltic, yeah.
Just to be clear to some audience.
And leading smart city, for example, is like Tokyo. I've been learning from the Tokyo digital twin.
And where he competes in karate.
Yeah, and do some karate there. Exactly, that's what took me there. And But I get calls, right? And because of our flywheel model, a lot of our partners are working in different parts of the
You
world.
say flywheel model. Is this the 17 Sustainable Development Goals?
That is not. No, those are the SDGs.
What's a flywheel?
A flywheel means that one business drives the other. So the fact that we're showcasing how you do the future of buildings, for example, and connect that data set allows us to know now when somebody else is building a new building, they're going to reach out to us because we have some insights. And we can also help license house building to them. And now we have their high fidelity building. And because we know that high fidelity building is coming up, right, our construction management team is able to, like BIM, building information model, we can offer a service to that, construction company to say, hey, or new project to say, hey, do you want a digital twin? Boom, here's X amount for that. All right, is that going to be designed to these specs so that you can make sure it goes well into your construction project? Boom, here's an additional service we can give you for that. What about the construction management to measure payments again to make sure most projects, 80% are usually over time and over budget, as you know. So we can help manage that. We have successful case studies at the airport, for example, with Jorge and some of the colleagues there of how we save money, and that's millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? Mm-hmm. Then finally we're saying, okay, now that we've captured all that data, hey, do you want an operational and management digital twin? Which is a different product, different software, right? Okay. That we have. And now we're able to make the biggest expense for the building is not building it and designing it, it's operating and managing it for the life cycle of that building. Mm-hmm. So you have this full life cycle approach. So it's each one of these partners we serve as the integrator and the reseller for. So we make a one-stop shop very possible. We're seeing different folks pulling for different things. Places like the Middle East is more into Web3, right? How do we use Web3 to do crypto-enabled transactions, to buy and sell? You have a company here called Proppy that does that. You also have other AI enablement. Buildings want to do that, but you need to first digitize, right, the building and the building records. And then you have developers that want to figure out, where do I maximize my development if I have this and this data? How do we get that? And so that's another thing that we have that's AI enabled. And then finally, when you're built, do you want to gamify this? Do you want to put it into a game engine? Do you want to put it into the MiamiVerse? You want to be able to put it into a VR thing where kids can play in your building and go into Fortnite and have that experience. We can make that for them too. Right. So we're I think for the commercial real estate industries, they can benefit from all over the world, right? Applying and deploying these best practices and these technologies. Some of the partners that we have, like the base for the urban scale groups with Next Space, Cybercity, 3D, those projects are already being done in a lot of other parts of the country. Just in Arizona, there are 17 different cities. In your old stomping grounds in Boston, Cambridge is also one of the cities that's on board. San Francisco is another one. I think Texas, we have some things going on. But we have repositories for cities all over. Just in Miami, like I said, there's 34 cities, 32 cities. Right. So we can focus first on 5 we want to highlight before FIFA. That's going to be plenty of work for us, right?
Yeah,
to create these experiences and then plug in the venues. For example, there's going to be a place called Tequila Town. So I'm going to connect that with City Hialeah and the HialeahVerse. And so City Hialeah can now promote Hialeah to when people are coming for FIFA. Fun. We have a common umbrella.
Because most of the world's not going to really.
They can discover, and that's a studio. That's like a big, really cool immersive experience to sample different things. It's for adults, and but how else would you know about it? Right? Unless you talk to Silvio or some of the folks that are building that thing. It's not even open yet, but it will be, right? And so that's another type of commercial client you do with warehouses. For example, they've completely changed this warehouse to make it an experience. Mm-hmm. The other developer in Miami Beach and Lincoln Road, they're having a future tower go up. Okay. Right, we know what that looks like. We have rendered that out.
Is this
the Hyatt? Is it in next to the Miami Beach Convention Center?
Okay.
Across from the parking lot.
Right.
That's
Terra Group is the convention center hotel, 800 unit.
The hotel, right? And so we have that in rooms, and it's a Hyatt, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Right? And so another one of our tech partners that's part of this alliance with the MiamiVerse and a technology partner of Sustaina Cities has built that rendering for them. So now they have a place where Terramark can showcase that property on the MiamiVerse. Great, man. So anyways, those are some examples, and those are some of the cities where we're really being called for, at least here in the U.S. Right. And we hope to scale this in other places in Europe and Asia and the Middle East, this year.
Well, before we tell our audience where we're heading next and why we're dressed in such fly threads, touch on that in a moment too. But let's offer with an ask to the audience: what can our commercial real estate corner do for you in MiamiVerse?
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity for a plug. Look, I think what I want the audience to know is, I want to know how can why do they see that they can benefit from this? We have a suite of solutions, methodologies, and best practices that we want to bring to bear from the design and construction to sales and marketing to the end, and so we would love to be able to bring the first number of buildings, the commercial buildings, to the Living Building Lab, what we call the Living Building Lab. And we'll give them support with the universities, with local government, with technology. We'll give them training. We're going to support this first cohort of buildings. So our call to action to your guests and listeners today would be, join the Living Building Lab, join the MiamiVerse, and tell us what you want. What do you want to accomplish, right? We can do all kinds of things with digital twins. As Logos Capital, we'll finance any of these groups that want to retrofit, right, to digitize their buildings and do the rest. So we'll also offer that. But, in the end of the day, we need clients. We need folks that say, you know what, I want to lead. I want to make our building digital. I want to make our asset future-proof. I want to optimize it to save on energy and water, which ultimately is going to make us more profitable, right? I'm willing to learn. Most people don't want to change their mindset. So we need folks like you that have a growth mindset. We were just talking about this before the cameras turned on, and want to learn to be like, how can we make this better, right? So we have a big opportunity to make the oldest and largest asset class in the world, that touches everyday lives better, right? And I would love to do that for your audience and have them benefit and showcase to the world that they're leading. So like you. So thank you for having me.
Appreciate that, man. Man, fantastic to talk to you, Silvio Frank Pupo, on MiamiVerse, and looking forward to fostering our friendship beyond the 9 years. One of my first friends in Miami, obviously a gracious unicorn, a local that was born and raised here and very knowledgeable. And we've had too many lost years, so I'm glad we bumped into each other on the shore last year. He was celebrating, I think it was a birthday.
Yeah, I was having a birthday,
just coming back from Japan. Championship at one of his karate tournaments back in Tokyo. And I like to start my morning at sunrise out there. And I was walking and reading with this book, The Emerging Global Cities. So the reason why we're dressed so nicely is for each other and our audience. However, we now have some FaceTime to go deliver a presentation at 3 p.m., like 3:05 p.m.,
exactly.
right? We'll do the cafecito time in Miami's area code at Edgewater, this beautiful women's club. And these dapper dandies, I'll admit, I chose Mighty Mighty Boston's Plaid. It's a 90s ska band. Look them up, ska band with the horns and whatnot.
I love ska.
Yeah, why not? And you've got this 70s burgundy, what are we doing at Art Walk today, celebrating MiamiVerse anniversary, correct?
Yeah, so yes, exactly. Today, a year ago, we we hosted the first Digital Twins Conference in Miami, a focus on real estate, the Digital Real Estate Conference and Summit. And we unveiled the MiamiVerse and his vision for the MiamiVerse and the trajectory that has come to get here. So we got a proclamation for MiamiVerse Day. And now it's our anniversary, celebrating MiamiVerse Day. And so we're inviting everybody to come and join us by doing a little art walk together at the Brickell Underline. So we're going to unveil that in a casual, informal setting. We're displaying art from students to inspire coral restoration projects to save Miami. We'll write a love letter to Miami on MiamiVerse Day. It's going to be Valentine's on Saturday, and then we're inviting folks to join us for cocktails and a conversation around what is a MiamiVerse, and that's how I think we're going to draw folks to teach them more, right? As we've been doing at the Frost Family Fun Festival and other locations, we're educating the community. What is tech? How do we use it? What do they want to see in this technology? That's really important, right? We need to design with the end user in mind, and we need everybody's feedback, including yours out there watching this today, so that we make something that's useful for you. So it's a MiamiVerse anniversary. We're going to present a formal proposal now to the City of Miami, as I mentioned, We're going to go to different cities to say, hey, let's connect on the MiamiVerse and on the Art Walk Miami, so we can generate new revenues for the city to lean into this future and to keep building this out and keep making this free and available to everyone. From 7 years old to 70 years old, they'll be able to enjoy the Art Walk, and they'll be able to learn more through the magic of the MiamiVerse. So in the Magic City, nonetheless. So yeah, I hope you can join us tonight. Now we're going to go to present this to the City of Miami's Arts and Entertainment Committee at the Women's Club, and then we're going to do our 3 to 5, and then 7 to 9:30. So we're going to be meeting at Brickell Underline Station. Of course, we're encouraging everybody to take public transportation, as we do.
Well, since we're not posting this live, you'll get the after. Maybe we can link the show or features that were at both of these locations.
Yeah.
So I'm excited, and we're going to get, out of the Grove here at Nucleus Hub. And again, Silvio, my friend, thank you for you. I think one of the things we vibe about is we like to do cool shit.
Yeah.
And you're producing a lot of that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, likewise.
Thank you to the audience. We'll see you back at the Commercial Real Estate Corner at another visit with a top influential, inspirational professional here in Miami or even beyond.
All right, guys, stay tuned and dial into the MiamiVerse to follow the greatest, openmiami.org, and Kevin's podcast. Thanks, Kevin. You rock.
You got it.
High five. Very nice.